Well, folks, we got a whole lot of parts lying over here on the bench. The last little bits of blocking just got glued into the boat. Aside from cleaning up those little bits for the blocking, I'm ready for paint. So let's check it out. Total Boat is helping us out on this project with donating some finishing materials in addition to the adhesives they gave us earlier. Let's see what we got. Okay. Now we'll throw in some mixing cups, some foam brushes, some filters. It's very nice of them. I don't really like the foam brushes myself. I'm not a fan of those things, but I use filters all the time. Doesn't hurt having a few mixing cups. So, Total Boat Elixir. So what we are going to do is we are going to use Total Boat's what we're going to do. What I was going to do on this project, I wanted to use Total Boat's waterborne finishes. I'm trying to make that shift away from solvent-based products for finishing because they're really invasive in the workshop here. My workshop's in my house, and trying to deal with ventilating the space is really difficult, especially in the winter time, which seems to be a lot of the time when I do a lot of finishing. So I want to play around with this stuff. I don't like waterborne clear finishes. They always kind of look a bit meh to me. But I do like waterborne paints, and I think they're actually pretty good. In fact, like, you don't get the gloss. So if you want gloss, forget it. You're not going to get it from a water-based product. But if you don't want gloss, they might be the way to go, because it's hard to get a non-glossy oil-based product. So we got some just plain old white for the outside of the boat. And for the inside, we're going with classic whaler blue. Yeah, I know. Sounds crazy, eh? I kind of like the idea. I like throwing some color at stuff sometimes, and I think this is going to be kind of interesting. Shall we let's take a little taste. Oh, she's all sealed up. All right. Pop the cork. Woo! I don't know if I think this needs a good shake. It's a very dark blue right there. I think that's not the, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if that needs, if that's all needs some mixing, probably. I like the idea of just sort of like a sky blue. Hopefully this changes color as it dries. We'll see. A little different now that I mixed it. I don't know. You know, worst case scenario is I may have to like add white to it to sort of bring it down to the color that I'm after. What else we got here? We have got now we are going oil based on the varnish, and so we're trying out Total Boat Lust. And this is like a fast recoat product, so hopefully that will help us out. And then we're going to top it off with their matte finish. So we're going to go for no gloss on this boat. No gloss, no shiny. So there we go, the Lust matte finish. They do actually recommend you overcoat this one with that one for some reason. Anyhow, I threw in some special brushing thinner, which is awesome. Is this? I assume this is for. So I guess this is intended to be going with this stuff. I mean, I usually just use plain old off-the-shelf mineral spirits. No, so we have a Total Boat tint kit, and I got this because we need to do gray on the transom. So I thought we would just use some white and then tint it down to gray. I was actually thinking I might even use the blue and tint it down with some black maybe. Anyway, regardless, we've got, I think this is awesome. this like big kit with a bazillion different colors, a mixing guide. I mean, you can color your epoxy. It's not something I do very much, but being able to sort of tint paints a little bit. And of course, you got to be careful that you tint enough to get the job done. And I'm assuming this is universal. Yep. Oh yeah, you can use it on everything. Shellacs, lacquers, stains, epoxy, paints, glazes. So usually when they have these pigments, don't quote me on this, but I think they use glycerin as the medium in it, and glycerin is soluble in all things. Anyhow, that's great. So thank you very much, Total Boat, and we will have some fun putting this stuff on. That blue scares me a little bit. I was really hoping it was more opaque. I'll have to do a little taste test on a bit of scrap and see how that comes out. We'll be back. I'm in a bit of a pickle. It's just after Christmas, a couple days after Christmas, and it has snowed out here, which it very, very, very rarely does, although each year we can usually count on one snowfall, and we can generally count on it right about Christmas, which is frustrating because while we're using water-based finishes throughout most of this boat, Joe didn't want water-based for the bright work. And so that means I've got to use solvent-based, and we've got Total Boat, what is it? Total Boat Lust varnish on hand. And it just, the odor on it is too strong for me to use in the shop. Because my shop's in my home, it's basically in the basement, and any fumes that I produce really can make their way through the house quite easily. And normally when I'm doing varnishing, I usually use Le Tonkanois, in which the fumes from it are non-toxic and they don't smell too bad. So what I usually do is when I'm going to varnish with that stuff, I open the doors, I run an extraction fan, I move as much air through as I can while I'm doing the varnishing, which is terrible for dust, but that's the best I can do. And I can get away with it just in terms of complaints from my wife. With the weather, I certainly can't do that, and because this product we are using, which is Total Boat Lust, is definitely smellier than the Le Tonkanois, I can't do that either. Which means I gotta varnish outside, but I can't varnish outside because of the snow and the cold. Now I did buy a tent to set up, but even a tent is not going to help me when it's that cold out there. So that puts me in a real pickle as to how to move forward here. I'd like to at least get going on the paint work, but whenever there's paint and varnish, I like to take care of varnish first, because then any paint that gets onto the varnished areas I can clean off really easily. Can't do it the other way around. I mean, I can clean varnish off the paint areas. However, anything that has to be unpainted, anything that has to be bright work, I don't want to get paint on it at all, because that paint gets into the grain and you can't get it out of the grain once it's there. So I really don't know what to do. I do have some water-based varnish. I'm tempted. No, damn it. I'm stuck. I'm going to be stuck for a week of not being able to make any progress on this boat, which is frustrating in the extreme. Unless I just go ahead with paint from, say, the first plank downwards or something like that, which seems like a terrible compromise. But maybe that's better than doing nothing. All right, well, I decided my best course of action is a compromise. So I'm doing this starting up the varnish work here using this water-based varnish. Now this is Pt.1 Gold, which is kind of interesting in that it looks a lot like oil-based spar varnish. They've added just enough pigment to it to make it give it that sort of amber look that we're looking for on a traditional spar varnish, without it looking all kind of gross and yellowy like some products do. It's not perfect, but we'll go with regular spar varnish on top of this, and that'll bring out the more natural amber colors that we're gunning for. I wish I could have done it otherwise, but I'd have to delay this whole finishing process at least a week in order to move ahead with the oil-based stuff. So at the very least, I can get going, you know, at least with even just one coat of this stuff on here. It's going to seal up my end grain and all the surfaces that are to be bright finished in the long run. And then at least when I go and start putting paint on, I can clean up if I get a little spillage over the side. So that's the main goal right there, is to be able to clean up if I have a mistake. So this will allow me to do that. So we'll just go with the one coat here, I think, and then I'll start in on paint. What I don't really love about this stuff is it doesn't flow like oil-based varnish. Stem head, we're going to paint that. I'll just coat the whole thing for now. It doesn't flow out the way oil-based does. It doesn't brush on the way oil-based does. So at best, it's okay for doing build coats with it, and I've done that before. And the one thing that I decided was there was a boat I did with this stuff a few years ago. Did all the base coats. It was a canoe. And the owner mistakenly let the canoe fill up with water over the course of a winter. So it sat with water sitting in it against the varnished cedar for a couple of months. And I practically destroyed the canoe. But I was really impressed with how the varnish didn't lift on the inside of the boat. It really held in pretty good, except for just a couple of small spots. So that sort of tells me that this stuff has pretty good holding power, and that's the one reason I'm going ahead with doing this, is I've seen it perform under what I would consider pretty harsh conditions, and come out with a successful result. So stuff just doesn't really soak into the grain in the same way that an oil-based does, you know? Okay. So just using a small brush to paint out the blocking here inside these inwales. It's one of the things I really can't stand about doing the blocked inwales like this, is these stupid little details kind of drive you nuts after a while. Doesn't seem like much, but if you look along the side of the boat here where I was varnishing over the whole thing, you can see little runs coming down the inside despite my tape and hitting the planking. And that's every time you hit one of these, your brush runs over one of these blocks, and it's impossible to avoid it. You get a little dribble that runs down the inside. I actually need to stop and paint out the bottom side of all of this here before I go ahead with the tops. So better do that. Now, I very much appreciate Total Boat for contributing some materials towards this project, but the ongoing support for these videos is provided by my followers on Patreon. This week I'd like to thank Ollie Mills and Don Goodwin for joining the crowd. If you'd like to help us out on Patreon, I really appreciate that. You can find links in the corner or down in the description. this stuff kind of gels up on you much faster than an oil-based varnish does, so you can't work in larger swaths. You got to keep the swaths pretty small. I know a lot of people get really frustrated with painting and varnishing. But you know, 90% of the work happens without a brush in your hand. You've got to take the time to prep those surfaces. You got to take the time to sand things properly. You especially got to take the time to clean up those surfaces properly. Get the dust off, wipe it down, let it dry, and then getting your equipment ready. Brushes need to be cleaned. You need to have a paint pot ready to go, strainers, clean tack cloth. It's just a long process of getting up to the point where you can start doing the work. When you do that, the work's really pleasant. Sometimes I even enjoy it. I ran a line of tape underneath the inwales here on the planking, just so that I didn't have like big swaths of overbrushing that I needed to worry about sanding out. I didn't do the neatest taping job. I don't really need to. Nobody likes painting and varnishing, really. The secret to not hating it as much is actually to do it more frequently than you would like to. So that means when the boat's still looking good, that's the time to repaint and revarnish. Because if you do it then, there's very little prep work to do. The finishes that are on the boat are still in good shape, and all you need to do is degloss them. If you wait for them to start peeling, cracking, or blistering, you've left it way too long. And that means you're going to have to do a lot more sanding to get back to square one. Whenever I'm working with water-based finishes, I usually switch over to synthetic brushes. I just find they work a bit better. I've found natural bristle brushes tend to kind of swell up quite a bit with the water-based finishes. Certainly in the ferrule they do. And after you clean them, they don't ever want to kind of lie down quite as nicely as a synthetic brush does. Okay, now I'm going to go like that.